Hey everybody, Stinger here with a special message, a special thank you to the best Italian wrestling podcast. That's right, the best Italian wrestling podcast called Pro Wrestling Culture. Specifically, thank you to Aldo Fiadoni. All right, Aldo, awesome job, man. I guess you and I met in New York in 2019. And there were some tears shed there. Man, I love that. I love that. You know what? Real men can cry, bro. Let me tell you something. Man, means a lot that you watch. Means a lot that this podcast is happening. And the pro wrestling culture appreciates Aldo Fiadoni. So be watching there. It's going to be showtime. And tune in to the podcast, Pro Wrestling Culture, because it's always showtime there from the Stinger.
Questo programma non è soggetto a infezioni. It's showtime. Culture. My name, the real Messiah, Aldo Fiadone, and here with me, my special friend, Adriano Paduano. Hi, Adri.
Hi, Aldo. Hi, everybody. How are we? Everything okay?
Everything is okay. And you?
Oh, good. Amazing. Thank you. Thank you very much. Welcome. I'm glad I'm here because very special guest today. So I'm very
special guest.
Yeah,
absolutely,
for me,
very
yes,
special guest.
For me, yes, absolutely.
The first ever Progress Wrestling World Champion, ladies and gentlemen, Nathan Cruz. Hi, Nathan.
Hi, hey, Nathan.
Guys.
You're right.
Thank you very much for having me on. Thanks for such a flattering introduction. It never ever ceases to amaze me when people say such kind things like that. So thank you.
It's just because I've been living in the UK for almost 10 years now.
Oh right, which part in the UK do you live?
Well, I'm now in Liverpool, but I used to live in London. And for me, Progress was like my monthly treat, you know. So right. And I remember everything about you. So
cool.
I remember the day. I wasn't there when you won the title because it was I started following Progress afterwards. But I remember when you came back with the origin and all that stuff. So that was cool. That
was probably my favorite time in Progress as well. Like that entire thing that we did with the origin was, probably hands down my favorite thing that I did.
Yeah, that would spoiler alert. That would be one of my questions. So get ready.
No worries.
But probably I can call this interview a Progress reunion between you two.
Kind of.
So, Nathan, my first question is, what does it mean for you, something like first ever Progress Wrestling World Champion?
Yeah, obviously, with the success that Progress has had, that's awesome. Do you know what I mean? Like, that could have been one thing or another. Do you know what I mean? There's so many promotions that do start up. And I mean, for example, I was the first ever champion of a company called Empire Wrestling, but I don't think you've heard of them. You know what I mean? Like, it's obviously the success that Progress went on to have. But I remember that day in particular, like the first match that I had, obviously the qualifying match against Colossus, and then when I went into the Fatal 4-Way, by the time we was going into the Fatal 4-Way, I knew that crowd was something special, and I knew that we were onto something. And you know, when it came down to the last two in the match, I think at the time was me and Marty Scale. He had felt the same thing after his match with Zack Sabre as well, and we really wanted to, and where that company has gone, and seeing the success it had, and you know, even the things that I got to do there, you know, getting all the way to the moving to the ballroom and getting to do like Brixton Academy and things like that, it's huge, and it's such a badge of honor that I wear, and I'm proud to wear it as well, because Progress was easily one of my favorite points of my career, without question. Like I've been blessed to have a very good career in 16 years, and Progress is one of my favorite cornerstones of that career.
So we are in 2022, 10 years anniversary of Progress, and so you mentioned before your favorite part with the Origin, but after all of these years and after all of your matches in the company, do you have one match or else are you proud of?
Yeah, it would be. I think it's Chapter 6, and it's Rampage Brown's debut. So, I
Yeah.
mean, this is an unknown story, really. So, I just lost the title, and John and Jim asked me who I wanted to wrestle at the next show. And at the time, Rampage had been under contract with WWE, at the time FCW in Florida, and he didn't really like it there. Like for whatever reason, he had his reasons that he wanted to come back, and he just wanted to get on the independent scene and really show the world how good he was. And Rampage has always been like a big brother to me in professional wrestling. Like when he first met me in 2010, he took me under his wing, and he helped me so much. And to this day, he's fundamental in not just my professional wrestling career, but even just my life. And I wanted everybody to see how good he is, because I knew how good he was, but he was like relatively unknown because he'd done shows that weren't necessarily had an online presence. And so I said, let me work Rampage. Let me wrestle Rampage. And I think that match is still on YouTube. We beat the hell out of each other. We really did. Like we really got stuck into each other. It was a style that he and I really, at that time in our lives, like enjoyed doing, and real gritty. And I just remember thinking, and then seeing how invested they were in Rampage after that. I think once shortly after that, he became the champion, and I was like, good, because now I've done something for somebody who's done so much for me. I've been able to say thank you, and at the same time, like anytime I get to wrestle Rampage, it's special for me because I feel like I've got something to prove. In my opinion, he's the best, and I'll fight that case with anybody. He is the best professional wrestler in the United Kingdom. He's incredible, and particularly at that time, he was he was in his A game. Like that was when he knew how good he was, and he was owning every second that he was in that ring. And to get to share that with him, and step your game up and show him how much you've learned in the time that he'd been away, it was just a very special match for me. So I think out of all the matches at Progress, I think that's the one that I look back and go, that means the most to me on a special level, or like on a personal level. But the one in regards to moments would be when we lost the tag team championships against the London Riots. Like that was the end. The Super Strong Style 16 tournament's a long night for wrestling fans, right? They see a lot of wrestling. We went on last on that show, and there's a beautiful picture that James Musselwhite caught of a near fall, and there isn't a single person in the ballroom that's seated. Like they're all like reacting, and the kick out, like, it's just as I kicked out. I think it was like the last near fall before they beat us, and I just remember how we had the audience in the palm of our hand, and to say that after all they'd seen that night meant so much to me, and to give them that moment to feel those reactions, it was definitely. I think that might be my overall favorite match that I had there. But like I say, on a personal note, Rampage's debut is my personal favorite. But if I'm just going on like just the way things clicked and the moment that we created the tag title match, it's tough to choose between the two.
So you are a part of the Origin of Progress, and when you are Progress World Champion, the company was without title belts. Is with object like Adriano. Correct me if I'm wrong. With
Staff.
Yeah.
Yes,
Stuff.
yes.
Nightmare.
Is this? Wow. Why something
It
like
was.
this?
I mean, they would. I got it. They just wanted to be different. Like they
Yeah.
just wanted something different, and so they was like, "We're gonna have a championship prop." And don't get me wrong, I liked the concept, but then when you walk into the ring with that thing, God, was it just? It was just awkward. It was just in the way, and then then they eventually got a championship belt, right? And it's a beautiful championship belt, but it was after I'd lost the title. And then it was the same thing with the tag titles, though. We had them shields, right?
Yeah, sure.
And then
Yes.
shortly after we lost them, they got an actual pair of tag belts. But I actually like the shields, if I'm completely honest, because we made a point of like sometimes using. I remember we had a street fight against FSU, and like when they went to dive on us, we actually used the shields as shields, and they ate them, and they were cool. I enjoyed them, but the staff was just a nightmare. But again, I guess
you don't have the replica of that one.
They never offered it to me.
So last October, the 1PW makes their return in wrestling scenario. Big crowd, very nice show, and you had a match there with Amstorm for the MLW World Championship. So, do you have any other favorite moment outside the progress in your career?
Oh, so many. This, like again, there's another one with Rampage for a company called NGW UK, which is predominantly where I've applied a lot of my trade here in England. And it was at the time that they had like a good local TV deal and a good YouTube show, and they built to this match with he and I for the championship. It was in my hometown. It was sold out, and it was in this big venue that I used to go and watch wrestling in, called the Hull City Hall. I used to go watch that as a kid, and now I'm main eventing it against my mentor. My parents are there. It's sold out. It's on TV. You know what I mean? It was just one of those. And at the time, I was booked heavy as like the baby face, like the good guy. So it was a special moment when I beat him for the championship. The crowd went insane. There was a lot of my friends and peers there. That was just a real special night. Like I look back at that, and I always just think that was just mind blowing how the stars kind of aligned there for me. But yeah, that 1PW shows that got to be up there for it, just because when I very first started wrestling, which was in 2006, that was when 1PW was having its like first heyday run, like, and I used to sometimes go to those shows.
2005.
That's correct. Yeah. So I remember going to the show theirs in late 2006, and then again in 2007. And then, especially the Doncaster Dome one was in 2007. I remember thinking, wow, like, it'd be awesome to work these shows around there. Like, hopefully, do you know what I mean? And then they went, and it was just one. And not to say, like, obviously, I've done these other things. I've done Progress. I've done ICW. I've got to do like the other cool shows that have come around in the meantime. But you know, it was just, I kind of just felt, well, it's just one thing that'll never happen. And then it comes back around, and it just so happens that the promoters see me on shows, and again has quite a high opinion of me and wants to bring me in. So I'm like, yeah, okay, this sounds incredible, and just dealing with him has been incredible because he's such a good businessman. But more so than anything, that moment when I first got to walk out of the Doncaster Dome and be like, wow, now I'm on the other side of the barrier, like. So many years later, I think it's like 15 years on, but it's incredible to say at 15 years on since I was sat in the crowd going, I'd be sick to do one of these shows one day. Oh, here I am. It was a very special moment to me. Just again, just on a personal level of just kind of reflecting on my life and my journey and my career.
You are probably one of the greatest still in European scenario. In fact, I remember you in Rome during the 2015 show for the EPW.
Against Mark Haskins.
Teatro Tenda Strisce. Yes, I was there. And I remember your match against Mark Haskins. Great match with two of the greatest talent in the Europe. In fact, Mark was the OTT champion until last August, probably. So what do you think about that match and the Italian fans? Because if you want to talk about it, about the progression of the Italian wrestling during these years.
I mean, I loved that, and that's the only time I've actually wrestled in Italy. Was that one show, but it was fantastic. Like, I remember just how well they treated us. Picked us up from the airport in a nice car, and it was like a comfortable car as well. So obviously, I think we'd left England at like 4 a.m. or something like that. You get in, you are tired, and then whatever. But they took us to the hotel. We instantly had food. Then from the hotel to the venue, again, just took exceptionally great care of us. The fans were fantastic as well. Like, enthusiastic throughout the show, very appreciative of the effort that we're putting in. Not an entitled audience by any means. Like, they wanted to get invested in the show, which is a big thing for me. And even at the merch table, I remember people being very polite and respectful for what we'd done. But yeah, it was a very busy weekend, that, because I remember the night before I'd wrestled for NGW up in like the north of England. I had to go to Manchester to get to my plane to Italy. Did the show in Italy. I got a bit of sleep. Me and Mark was in the same hotel, and then I had to be at the airport the next day to fly into London to go do Progress. And then after Progress, I had to get on a train because I live up in the north of England, so I had to get on the train back up north. It was a long, busy weekend. But again, it was one of those weekends I remember being on the train home going, "Isn't this cool? This is your job. Like, this is what you get to do for a living. Like, you've just been from, like, I think it was like Northumberland in like the northeast of England, all the way to Italy. You've wrestled there, back to London. You've wrestled there. Now you're on a train back home, to see my fiance. And it's little moments like that you do. You realize this, like, this is awesome. It just contributes to my overall happiness and enjoyment of life. Like, that's such a cool thing to be able to say I did. And yeah, I love the Italian fans. Like I say, they was extremely enthusiastic and extremely respectful. I think that's two things that as a performer, any wrestler can just hope for, that they'll be respectful and they'll be enthusiastic. That's all we want from you. You know what I mean? You enjoy yourselves and appreciate the fact that we're risking our lives for your entertainment, and we'll give you our literal blood if it needed. You know what I mean? And yeah, you guys were great. I remember really enjoying my time there for that one day.
So this is probably the greatest part of your work, no? Traveling the world.
Yeah, but, it is. It really is. It's exhausting though. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, there's sometimes when I'm looking, like I got offered to do this weekend. They offered me to go to Pakistan for the weekend. I was like, I'm not, like, all due respect, I appreciate the opportunity, but you want me to board a 13-hour flight to come in, wrestle, get probably about 6 hours sleep, and then jump on the 13-hour flight back home. And then there's all the traveling to and from the airports. Like, I'm at least an hour and a half from the airport that they want me to in good traffic. So it's like, unless this is going to be a really good payday, I think I'm going to stay at home with my family this weekend.
So, do you want to join Italy once again? So, EPW or another company here?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'd love to come back, and because I didn't get to see Italy. That's the thing with a lot of these places that I've been to visit. I've visited 8 countries in my career, but like, there's only a few select places that I've actually got to explore and see. Most of the time, it's literally that story of car, hotel, venue, hotel, airport, home. And so I don't really get to see much. Like, for example, I remember in 2013, I was wrestling in France every weekend for like, I think it was like 3 months straight. Like, they was flying me out there, and I'd do Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I'd always fly into Paris. I have not once seen the Eiffel Tower. Like, I've never seen it. Because I just didn't have the time. Like, I'd meet the bus, and then we'd get into the coach or whatever that they had us in, and then off we go. And like, we're off to the venues, and then we're off to the hotels that we're staying in, or we're off to the places that we're getting food, or to the supermarkets that they've got us do promotional stuff in. They did take me to Disney though. I can't.
Did they?
They took me to Disney on 2 occasions. They took me to Disneyland, so I was very appreciative of that, which was cool. But yeah, I didn't really. What was nice though was when I did those tours was being able to take in the scenery and stuff. Like, I'm a big nature guy. Like, I prefer to be out in the nature and stuff than the city. And for me, like getting to go and see, like driving through some of the area, I can't even think of the names of them now, but some of the old villages and seeing some of the mountains and stuff, I was like, oh wow, this is beautiful. Like I appreciated that just as much. So I at least get to see that. But again, it's from the back seat of a car. It's from the back seat of an 8-seater where I'm huddled up like this with a freezing cold bottle of water and a cold sandwich or something. I'm like, oh, this is beautiful. And then, you know, and I'm sore and I've got to wrestle or whatever. But yeah, it's again, just cool experiences though. At the same time, you just got to pinch yourself and remember this is better than doing, you know, some 9-to-5s that I've had in my life at some point.
This is my last question before Adriano. So, you've wrestled in WWE during the European tour and in Impact Wrestling during their last European tour. So, why were you never why were you never a permanent part of WWE roster or Impact roster? Because I think you are a great material for a big company, for a major company like WWE, for example.
Yeah, so I mean, it's detailed, it's documented some places, but so I got offered a contract from WWE in 2016.
Okay.
I did my first tour of the United States, and the culmination of that tour, I wrestled at NXT against Elias, and then shortly after that, I got an email from William Regal telling me about the NXT UK tournament and offering me a deal. Awesome! Like at that point, I'd been wrestling 10 years. That's everything I'd wanted, and then it came to the medical, and I had high blood pressure that I didn't know about, and that's like they can't honor your contract if you've got high blood pressure, because you know you've got to remember that WWE is larger than a wrestling company. You can't just look at it as a wrestling company. They're a juggernaut. They're traded on the stock market. If one of their performers has a stroke or a heart attack in the ring or on TV, it's terrible. Do you know what I mean? That looks bad for the company, especially if they're in the ring wrestling, right? So I understand it from their point of view 100%. But I mean, obviously, it was heartbreaking to me. It was shattering. Like that is since I was 10 years old, all I ever wanted to be was a WWE superstar. And I used to say WWE superstar because I kind of knew there was a difference between that and just being a wrestler. I really wanted to be a WWE superstar. And then this is like, it's gone. Like, and you have to try and deal with that. And it's only been recently I have been able to fully get over that. And it was very tough for me to deal with. But it is what it is. And it's like, it isn't the only opportunity out there now. Thankfully, touch wood, like my blood pressure is now under control, because I didn't know about it back then. That was the thing, I think, why it got out of control, is because I didn't know I had hypertension. So I wasn't taking the preventative measures that you should do, and now I do, and I've got that under control. It might be something that comes up again in the future, but you know, this was 6 years ago when I was 26. I'm now 32, and I know that WWE there's a certain age where they'll be like, they might not be that interested in you because of how old you now may be, for whatever reason. Again, it may happen, it may not happen. And in regards to an Impact or an AEW or New Japan, I'd love to, obviously. If the opportunity arose, like, yes, like, of course I want to do it, because it's one of those, like, it just ticks that box and gives you some financial security and some financial reward. Like, don't get me wrong, pro wrestling, I'm very fortunate pro wrestling has been a good living for me at some in key stages of my life. It's afforded me to like help run my home, buy a house and things like that. Like, I've done well from professional wrestling, but not when you're 10 years old dreaming of being a WWE superstar and thinking I'll have a mansion and I'll live in America and all this stuff, right? Don't have any of that. But I have got, you know, if anything, I always take away from the fact that I'm very, very rich in experience, in life experience, and the friendships that I've made. I think that's the big thing that I never saw coming. Like, when I was getting into wrestling, I never predicted how many friends I'd make. And it's mental to me that I can sit here and tell you guys that, like, two of my closest friends, like one of them was going to be my best man at my wedding, live in America. And one of my other closest friends is Australian. And that's mental do you know what I mean? And pro wrestling gave me that. Professional wrestling gave me that. And that's incredible. Like, I love that so much that it's given me so many this interview. Like, I'm getting interviewed by two guys in Italy, right? That's insane to me. Like, and I've been so blessed with that you know, it's easy for me to get obsessed by what happened with WWE and draw myself down a hole with it. But you know, like, again, I know there's other opportunities out there, and at the same time, have I really got a bad life? Because I've got an amazing life. I've got an incredible fiance that supported me through all of this. We've got a cute as heck dog. I've got all these friends. I've got all these experiences. I've wrestled for I've wrestled for every major company in the United Kingdom. I've wrestled in some of the biggest companies in Europe. Like, and again, gone to all these other countries. I'm doing good. I'm happy. So, you know, anything that comes after it is just a bonus.
And you deserve it, absolutely.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
I guess
Adriano,
I guess that's the important thing. Like, if you're happy with yourself or with your career, it doesn't really matter if you, for a reason not out of your control, like that you could have made it to WWE.
That's it. It's just learning to accept things that are out of my control. I wear a pendant with a prayer around my neck, and that actually has that on it because of that same. Like, it's just that reminder that, like, that wasn't your fault. Everything you did was correct. Like, you trusted in yourself, you believed in yourself, you believed in the process, you did everything that I was told to do, you know, and followed that, you know, and I just, while I've got the opportunity, I want to say a big thank you to both Robbie Brookside and who now wrestles as Cash Wheeler, because without them two, like, I wouldn't have been in the WWE conversation. Them two made that happen for me, and I'm immensely grateful for everything that they did for me to make that opportunity come toward me, and I am to this day, will always be, because again, you know, I still got to wrestle for the WWE on 3 occasions, and I got to do WWE TV as an extra and did all these cool things around that. So it's not like I can't say that I never did actually make it to the WWE. You know, I remember having when I recently was in the United States early this year, and a conversation with a friend of mine, and he said, like, and it just changed my entire, like, view of life. And he was like, you know, Nathan, like, in my opinion, you are good enough to go there. And if anything, if you get to the end of your career and you say, like, look, you were good enough to get offered that contract, you know, like, no one can take that away from you. Like, isn't that, I know it isn't the financial world, but now you get to go home and you've got all this good stuff in your life as well away from wrestling. Like, so, do you know what I mean? Like, the bigger things in life that you don't necessarily think about because you're so focused on this career and this dream coming true that you forget about, like, well, what would happen to you when wrestling was done with you? You ever thought about that? And you're gonna have it, and having those people around me now, I really appreciate my time at home with them more than I ever have. Which makes it more difficult when I have to go away for quite a bit. Like, you know what I mean? If I have to go away for like a weekend or something, I'm like, oh, I really, really miss home now. Like, I used to be able to just kind of like, oh, it's okay, I'm coming back. As where now I'm like, oh, I really, really do miss home.
I was obviously, you reminded us that you have like 16 years career. I was wondering if 16 years ago you would even imagine like the boom that the British wrestling had like 5 years ago. Could you expect that?
I would have never predicted that. I don't think, like, as much as I believed in the scene, I just thought there was too many bad apples spoiling the bunch, so to speak. You know, I just thought it wouldn't be a thing that we'd get to see. But it was a shame for the talent, and it's something that I've always believed in, and I still to this day, to see how the scene's kind of taken a bit of a dip again, and I'm hoping we're going to see that resurgence again, because I genuinely do believe that it would be such a positive thing if the UK had a place to offer a contract that was a separate thing from WWE. And that isn't me knocking WWE, obviously, by any stretch of the imagination. If they reached out to me today, I'll hold my hands up and say, I'm probably going to take the deal. Do you know what I mean? But at the same time, just having those options there for talent, like, obviously you have like 3 major companies in the United States. You've got New Japan. And then I think to have a place here in England when we've got such a rich history of professional wrestling here, when so many talents from all over the world have come here to learn, to apply their trade, and they speak so highly of the British scene, I think it'd be criminal if this ended at some point without us ever saying that we had a company here, a promotion here, that could offer you a contract to pay your bills. Do you know what I mean? NGW came very close to that. Like from 2017 all the way up to the start of the pandemic, me and I think it was 6 other talents, or 5 other talents, 6 of us in total. were under contract, and they were paying us a good wage, and the only thing we had to do was honor their dates over any other thing. So say if I had NGW in my diary for this day, I had to do it. I couldn't take a promotion anywhere else. But if they haven't got dates on, say, like there's a free Saturday in September or whatever, yeah, you can pick up a booking elsewhere. Like, they were great with that. Like, and that was probably one of the happiest points of my life. Like, I was like, this is the dream, right? And I'd love to see NGW get back to that, and to be able to offer that to not just myself, but there's so many young talents that I see coming through the scene now that get me excited as somebody who's been around for 16 years that I want to work with. There's like a Miles Kamen, Derice, there's Alexis Falcon. I just see these talents that I'm like, wow, this UK scene's got a lot to offer. And then there's up and comers that are coming out of training schools, like Reese and Rogan are a great tag team. There's a lad who's he's part English, part Czech Republican, called Vusic. Just mind-blowingly good for their age. And I just think, God, if we can try and secure something here so that they don't have to stress about getting to a WWE or getting to a New Japan, like they have a goal here in England. Like, I don't have to move my life to a different country. I've got somewhere here in England. And again, like, nothing against WWE, but away from that WWE banner, so that it can, because that is there's a certain way WWE shows are. And I understand that some people will prefer a New Japan style to a WWE style, for example. Like, I'm obviously a WWE guy, but I understand that some people want a different style of things, and to offer that here in England and it be its British heritage, like its roots, and seeing like we had with that boom in I remember around 2015, 2016 time, just thinking that was about the time that I did that weekend where I was in like up northeast for MGW, Italy, and then back for London. I think that was 2016, and I remember just thinking, wow, like this is mental. I remember doing a show down south of England and getting stopped in the supermarket because they saw me on TV for NGW. And again, my head was like, I texted the promoter of NGW and I was like, you'll never guess what's just happened. And I never thought that would ever happen from British wrestling. I said to him, I was like, I only thought this would happen, if I get that WWE deal. And here I am getting stopped in the supermarket because they're watching our weekly show. Like, British wrestling was booming then. And I'm so proud to say I was a part of it, but not just a part of it. Like, I was a kind of a central figure at that time in certain promotions. Like you just mentioned, Progress with the Origin. That was at the time the NGW champion, and being in and around that hype was just intoxicating. It really was. Like, I look back now and it was the big boom. It was the second golden era, and to be in those conversations is it's going to cement my legacy long past my existence, and that's the biggest reward you can ever have.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe so. And you mentioned, obviously, like what you were talking about, the pandemic. Obviously, like 2020 has been kind of a nightmare here for everybody generally. But I think that probably British wrestling, not only for the pandemic, but also for the speaking out and all that trouble that came off. I wanted to ask you, how did you manage that period? What did you do, like, to cope the absence of? I mean, considering that you couldn't actually work, you couldn't wrestle, and how do you think the British wrestling bumped after that bad period? How do you think is going on now?
Very good question. It's going to take me a while to answer this one, so bear with me. So yeah, obviously it was bad. I can't deny it. 2020 was bad. So 2020, I was supposed to get married we'd saved for this beautiful wedding in Jamaica, and but I'm a self-employed pro wrestler, so there's an issue there, right? Now, obviously, the holiday can't go ahead, but my wedding got cancelled, so that was a bit of a bum note. The thing with the NGW contracts is, again, you're self-employed as a contractor, but they're getting money from somewhere, right, to pay these contracts. And if those shows aren't there to pay you, well, sorry, like, they can't pay us. And I completely understood that. I was like, it was in the contract when I signed it. I knew what I was getting myself into. And God bless them, they gave me, I think they paid me up to the end of April, which was like way past when they should have been. Like, we weren't doing shows since, I think, mid-February. So it was like, man, this is tough. But for one thing, and then obviously other thing was I just kind of I needed a break from wrestling because I'd driven myself down a rabbit hole and what had happened with WWE in 2016, and I'd not noticed I had because I just carried on. I didn't process it. Like it was just, well, this is terrible, but I'm a full-time wrestler, so I'll just put my boots on, I'll go and wrestle. And I was really depressed. In 2017 in particular, I had got into a bad situation with alcohol and just things I was hiding from my family just because my head was so messed up with it all. And I never put the brakes on to really realize like what was going on. Like I had peaks and troughs, like 2018 when we had WOS and stuff like that. I didn't care. You know what I mean? I was happy. Then 2019, AEW was happening and there's maybe a bit of buzz about that. And then all of a sudden this happens and it's like, oh, okay, like, well, maybe that's an opportunity that might have to wait. And I was just I had to. I thankfully I had a good friend of mine who's a paint and decorator, and he just offered to train me. And instead of paying me as an apprentice, he was like, I'll just split the wages with you 50-50 for each job, which was a godsend. Like I'd have been lost without him. The guy who owns my gym, he started giving me shifts behind the gym once that opened again. Like those first 3 months, we were okay. But when things started to open up and I needed to get to work and I couldn't go back as a professional wrestler, I was like, looking around. And it was a huge life adjustment to me because I turned professional at 19. Pro wrestling is pretty much the only job I've ever had. Like I've been very blessed with that. And now I was being forced into what I always thought was the worst case scenario, getting a normal job. And like, you know, it was the first time really in my life that I was waking up and realizing, this is what it's like to say I don't want to go to work. Like, 'cause I don't want to go to work. Like, it isn't like I'm getting to go do my thing. But yeah, then it was just a long mental journey for me to really process what happened in 2016. Like, I was able to put the brakes on and go, it's, you know what, Nathan, like, it's okay to be upset about the fact that you fell short of your dream. And it's been like a long time for me to really get into this. Like, there's a lot of meditation, a bunch of things that I've done. Conversation. I have a great support group around me, from my fiance to my parents. Real good friends, such as, like I mentioned him earlier, Cash Wheeler, who's just, man, I'd be lost without him. He's just had my back in particular this past year. It's all of those things have helped me get past that and get to that point, because I was done with wrestling in 2020. Like I kind of made my mind up. I was like, I don't even think I'm going to go back, because I was just so I'd lost all confidence in myself. And then WAW, the Knight family, Saraya, Zach, who you may know from recently AEW, Ricky Knight Jr., who's the Rev Pro champion. And their family have been around for 3 decades, and I've always had the utmost respect for them. And they reached out to me asking, would you be interested in doing the show in June? We want you to do the main event with Ricky Knight Jr. I was like, well, if anything's, hitting the ground running, if I'm coming back, like, this would be the one, right? And I was so nervous. Like, I'm probably more nervous than I may have been on my debut match. Like, I was really, really nervous about coming back. And especially in a main event with somebody as young and gifted as Ricky is. It's like, can I do this? Can I still, you know what I mean? And I surprised myself. I could. And God, now we had a great match. I was really proud of it. And Ricky said some very complimentary words on the microphone after. I was just crying my eyes out after that match, because I was just so in my own head that I couldn't do this. I couldn't be the Nathan Cruz that people was expecting to see. And to be able to go in and deliver, and then to have and not just deliver, but like exceed an expectation and have the respect given to me from a family that I respect so much. And then that gave me the confidence to go, okay, yeah. And then BWR, I'm wearing the merchandise right now, gave me a great opportunity to come in and do some tag team work with Matt Myers, who's been my best friend since I was 7. Like, we brought up in wrestling together. Pretty much, he's like I was born an only child, so he's like the closest thing to a blood brother I've ever had. And to be able to do that thing with him was good, again, because I'm very passionate about tag team wrestling as well, and getting to just learn some stuff there. And then I had a training school that they have a training school, sorry, that they hired me into, and to work with some of those young students and see their enthusiasm and how much they look up to me and how much they listen. And when they do listen, and see how much it works for them, and then getting to then sometimes do some matches against those guys, it all just helped in me just remembering, like, why I love this, why I want to continue doing it for as long as I possibly can do it. But also, like, it's just a breath of fresh air to now do it without the pressure on my shoulders of thinking of like, a WWE gonna like this, or hopefully this gets noticed by AEW, because now I'd like, again, it's not that I don't care, I just know that it's not the be all end all for me. I know that there's more to life, and this is like probably the happiest I've been in my professional wrestling career for a long time, just because I'm just doing it because I just want to do it. I just enjoy doing this, right? It's something that contributes to my overall happiness of life. It keeps me happy. It's my, like I've got another really close friend, and he's got two beautiful kids, and they think it's the coolest thing in the world that their Uncle Nathan's a pro wrestler. And like they came to see me recently when NGW had their fair show back at the Hull City Hall. They got to see this huge presentation and me go out and do my thing, and they thought it was amazing, and to get to share that with them now, and it's so different to like in my 20s when I wouldn't have even thought about that, and now seeing it through their eyes and how much they enjoy it and how much they look up to me, and I just think, oh, man, I'm so lucky that this is like, I'm just 2020 and the pandemic was rough for me and for the British scene, but I know for myself now personally, I'm definitely coming out the other side of things, and I feel so much better for it. In regards to the British scene, it's tough because the economy here sucks, because our government sucks. We've got the worst government like we really do, the scum, but like we're in a position where people can't afford to go to these shows on a regular basis anymore. People are worried about putting the heating on this year, for crying out loud. Like the last thing that's on their minds is a professional wrestling show. So I think like now they're saving their money for these bigger shows, the 1PWs. But I say this, but I at the same, because it's just because of certain places that I go to and I see how the draws are, and I'm like, oh, well, I haven't experienced anything like this since like when I first started. But then, you know, like I go back to NGW, they've got a show on December 17th. They announced it quite a while ago, but they haven't announced a single match, and they've already sold the venue out. It's only a 120-seater venue. It's one of their smaller venues, but to sell a show out without announcing a single match in this economy at the moment, I think is quite impressive. It's just one of them. Like I said, I did a WAW for the Night Family, like the same week. I think it was the weekend after I'd done the 1PW show that had 1,500 people there. WAW had their biggest show of the year, which is called Frightmare, and they had 1,400 people in. So those are big attendances.
Big.
But again, I feel like it's because people like we'll save our money for the big show because we can't afford to go to the regular the regular 500-seater venues. We can't afford that to go every month now, but every 3 months, every 4 months, we can afford to go to like one big show where we'll see our favorite British wrestlers. We might see some imports as well. So that's why I think there's a huge market for 1PW, and what I think it's come back at the right time. Just to go back to that. But yeah, I hope the wrestling scene is always going to be a reflection of the economy. So if the British economy recovers, people are going to have more money to spend. People will be able to come to our shows, buy our merchandise, support the talent. That's awesome. But, you know, like in the meantime, I think we just kind of hold our breath, limp by, and hope it's going to... The only thing... This is when you really see like the people who care about the industry as well, because you'll see about the people who want to stay here and protect it and take care of it so that when money starts coming into it again, there's still an industry there for people to come and apply their trade to. Like I've always said, like one of the reasons why I've never felt awkward about going to shake a hand of a veteran when I started, like a Robbie Brookside, a James Mason, a Robbie Dynamite, a Rampage Brown, Dean Allmark, all these people that came before me, is because more than anything, I'm saying thank you. Thank you for taking care of this so that now I'm old enough, I can come and do my thing here, and I really appreciate that, and I'm hoping that'll be something that'll catch on the scene, is that the people who may want this for the wrong reasons are gonna be weeded out, and the people who genuinely love this and protect it and want it to be around forever, and so that we can always make an income from it, are gonna be here to take care of it. And time will tell. Yeah. Like I say, as long as the Tories are in, I don't think we've got a great chance. We need to get them voted out.
So you're in the Zack Sabre Jr. family, like
I'm not. Well, I'm not Labour. I'm actually a Liberal Democrat. But like, I don't want to get into politics. But like, but either way, like one thing I definitely can agree with him is that the Tories need to be kicked out, and pretty much the majority of the country will tell you the same thing. Right?
Yeah, probably. Possibly. Uh, okay, so coming back, I told you I wanted to ask you a question about the origin as a Progress fan. I think like all the build up was great. All the faceless thing was absolutely great. Your reveal was huge. I remember like the reaction of the crowd when you took off the mask. People was like, "Oh, what the hell?" I mean, it was like a big reaction. Uh, what I felt as a fan, I mean, the story developed very well until you guys got the tag team titles, and then I think it was a bit of an underwhelming finish of the stable. I don't know if it was my feeling. Did something happen there? There was another plan for the stable, or that was their old plan all along?
It was honestly, it was kind of winged. Like every 3 months, we'd have knew what we were doing for the next 3 shows, and then we'll just see. But I agree with you. Like, and this isn't me knocking John and Jim and Glenn. Like, I had a great time working for them. John in particular, I love John because he was always honest with me. He always, whether I wanted to hear it or didn't, he told me straight. But that's beside the point. When it came to the end of it, I was the same. Like we all were. We was like, well, surely we can do more with this. Like us separating should be a bigger deal, right? And it did kind of just like we did the banter edition thing, which I thought was great. But like again, that had much more to go on it, in my opinion. Like we could have done so much more, and all of us wanted to, but it just was they had different ideas. I don't know if it was because certain talents was going to NXT UK after that, and I know, for example, I didn't. Of the three of us, like I went to WOS, but again, I just don't know what it was. Like I can make predictions. I can not predictions. Sorry, I can make I can guess as to what was going on, but it's only just going to be me. Like I don't know really what the plans were. I was never in the office. I was never involved in creative discussions like that. It was literally just show up. What are we doing today? And then, do you mind? What about this? Or what we're doing? Like, and I'd suggest stuff. Oh, maybe some stuff would get kept, some stuff might get thrown away. But yeah, it was never.
So there wasn't like a long-term plan for that.
No, it wasn't. Like literally in regards to it, like the setup for it, I remember because the faceless was some other people, and I'd had a year's gap out of Progress at that time, and then Glenn got in touch with me and was like, okay, so we'd like you to come back, and this is the idea, and he basically said because at the time he felt like the faceless thing wasn't working, and he wanted me to come back and quote unquote rescue it, so I said yeah, sure, like, and then when he pitched the rest of the idea to me, I was like, well, you're giving me some great partners to work with here. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think we can definitely do something. So that had a plan, 100%. But I don't think they ever planned anything too long term. They just wanted to see how the crowd responded to us. Did we get over as heels? So obviously we did, and that's when we had the run of the tag titles and all that. But then, yeah, like I said, as soon as we lost the tag titles, it kind of just. Like I loved the where we was going with banter edition, and that just happened by pure accident. I was like, this is fun, like this is great. They keep winding me and Zach up. That's fantastic. Like that's how we do this. And then, but again, it went to no. I think like I had one match against Ligero, and then me and Zach teamed on one show. And it was me who pulled the trigger at Progress as well. Like that goodbye speech that I did, it was very much because like 2017, right? That was when my head was gone. I couldn't be anywhere, which was frustrating me. And Progress was starting to frustrate me because I didn't know why this storyline was given such little attention. We'd been like the big heel group for like 2 years. I didn't get why my tag partners was going abroad, but I wasn't getting asked to. I didn't get why I was no longer going to Mania Access when I was told I was going to. Little things like that was starting to frustrate me. And I just decided it was time for me to say goodbye because my head wasn't in the right place and I was going to erupt and I was going to deal with it in a bad way. And I didn't want that. I really didn't, because I know me. I've got a short temper. And at that time I was really struggling and I just wanted to get away from it as soon as possible. Not with the intention of never going back, but I just needed to to step back from it, because it was a bit of a frustration with me, because again, like, and it's interesting to hear that from a fan's perspective, to hear that even you felt that like, oh, they could have probably done more with that, like, because we were in full agreement, but you know, whatever reason, it is their reasons, it's their promotion. At the end of the day, they just pay me, I come in, do exactly as they ask me to do, get my money, go home, and but again, it doesn't leave any ill taste in my mouth about Progress overall. So in particular, like that run with the Origin was so much fun. Like I every time you saw me out there doing that, I was having a blast. I mean, I really, really, really was. Like I was having so much fun, annoying everybody, getting under people's skin, and then hearing how much they were enjoying seeing us get beat up. All that good stuff that comes with being a good villain. I really, really enjoyed my time there.
Yeah, you could feel it like from a fan perspective that you guys were actually enjoying the moment.
It was like, it was, and like just daft things like hearing like Zach like, oh, I might say this tonight, and Zach come up with certain ideas, because obviously he was the one who got us all the thing with the toilet paper at Brixton and stuff. Like, I was like, it was just so much fun. And like just little things, like sometimes Dave would just say, we'd be walking to a ring and Dave would just say something just to try and make me break character, laughing at someone in the crowd. And man, it was just so enjoyable. So enjoyable.
I'm not gonna ask you like the usual question, who you think is like the best now, who would you like to wrestle. I want to ask you one thing. If there ever was like one wrestler, one colleague of yours, that you saw him and say, okay, this guy is gonna make it, and then he didn't make it, and the other way around, where you say, oh, this guy is rubbish, and then he actually made it. Has that ever happened to you? Did you have any example of this? Like that you were wrong about someone?
Yeah, and a big one, Will Ospreay.
Did you?
And
Really?
I tell this story all the time, and I've said it to him. Me and Will are friends. Like we get on, so it's fine for me to tell the story, because I always praise him for it. There was a time in his career where I saw Will as just an acrobat. He was a great acrobat, but his fundamentals weren't there. But and I remember having that conversation, and I handled it in a terrible way. Like I'm gonna sit here and say that, like he thought, I think he thought I had an issue with him personally, and I was no, not at all. Like I just don't see what other people see. Like I just see an acrobat, whatever. And rightfully so, it gave him a bit of a chip on his shoulder, because I shouldn't have. There's a way about going those things, especially if I've got the experience that I had on him at that time. Like I shouldn't have worded it like that anyway. Live and learn. And then he went to New Japan. He did his first tour. I remember he came back in 2016, and we were on a show together called Hope Wrestling, and I watched his match, and I took him to a side in the change room and said, well, Will, you've shoved that up my ass, haven't you? Because you're incredible. Like, you genuinely, I could just see how we fine-tuned those things were. And I was like, man, you've done that in like, I think it was like 2 years since we'd had that previous conversation. I was like, he's gonna be like, if he's got this nailed like in 2 years, like, oh my god, I can't imagine the limit for him. And now I say Rampage is like, I hold that Rampage is like the best, because I know Rampage is definitely for my style of wrestling what I enjoy watching. But I can't discredit Will Ospreay is one of the best professional wrestlers in the world. And I tell him that all the time. Like, I remember last time I saw him in person, and like we had that conversation, and he's brought that story up when we did a WOS tour, and he said it in a very positive way. He said like that helped him, because it made him think differently about things. Like, oh, he says that I was right about, which I wasn't right, but like, Will's phenomenal, and I've said that to anybody. I mean, to the degree now that if I'm wrestling, I would ask Will like feedback for me. Do you know what I mean? Like, mate, how can I get better? How can I be as good as you? And he's somebody who I was completely wrong about. I thought he'd reach a ceiling very soon as just doing the flips, and now I watch him in New Japan, and I look forward to watching Will Ospreay matches, because I just think his intensity now, how vicious he is, how he carries himself, how he's just an incredible professional wrestler. Like, easily, like, say, for me, he's in the top 3 in the world right now. He's just a phenomenal talent. In regards to somebody who I said would make it, who wouldn't, I don't think there is anyone. There's a guy called Nathan Cruz who failed a blood pressure test.
Nah, he
No,
didn't
but
make
No,
it.
he's the only one I know.
It wasn't his fault. It wasn't his
Yeah.
fault.
Yeah.
but
Last question.
about Will, probably he he is one of he is one that improved himself very well during the years, in particular in during the last 3-4 years, because he changing many things about his moveset also. In fact, probably in the first part of Osprey career, I saved only one thing: his story with uh, with Jimmy Havoc in progress. For
Yeah.
me, this is my opinion, only my simple opinion.
No. Honestly, the last 3 years that what I've seen him, like even before then, like say, I think by the time we was doing that WOS tour together in 2000, that was the start of 2019. We'd done the TV show in 2018.
Yeah,
I could not believe how diverse he was while I was watching. He could do comedy and make me laugh. He could go out and give you like a strong style, high impact match. He could go out and do the acrobatic stuff. He literally can't do. There's nothing he can't do. He's so diverse, and that's what makes him so good. Is that he can, and when he comes to doing the acrobatic stuff, like he does it better than anyone on earth. He's superhuman. Some of the things he does, I can't figure out how he does it. So I think if you can apply that to, and then he's knuckled down so hard, and he's put that hard work in to look the way he does, to wrestle the way he does, to perform the way he does. Like I've just got utter respect. Nobody nobody I've met in my career has earned my in-ring respect quite as much as Will Ospreay. Nobody.
absolutely.
My last question, Nathan, is like, you have the chance to take the DeLorean, the time machine, and go back 16 years ago and meet yourself. What would be the advice you would give yourself?
Just watch that blood pressure. Honestly, I think that'd be the biggest one. Like, honestly, I do.
Yeah.
But other than that, like, I don't know. Like, just appreciate it. I think that's it. Just like really, I often didn't take moments in my career to sit back and appreciate it. I think like since I started in 2006, I remember the first time I ever really sat back and was able to appreciate it after I debuted in 2006 was 2011. So 5 years later, at that point, I was a full-time professional wrestler. I'd just come out of a very, very busy summer season, like where I'd been wrestling most weeks. I was wrestling 10 matches a week, and we was doing that for six to 7 weeks. And then, at the time, I was having my first run with the NGW Championship. I was 20 years old, and I'd just flown out on a holiday to Spain. I remember just sitting on that beach, knowing I've paid for this holiday through wrestling. I've just had this incredible run this summer where and at the time, Brian Dixon for All Star Wrestling was singing my praises as much as he could, which meant the world to me because that's, like he's been promoting at that point, he'd been promoting for 40 years. Now he's been promoting for 50 years. Like the man knows his stuff. And that meant a lot to me. And to sit there at that point, that was the first time I really put the brakes and go, hey, well done. Like I never did. Like I'd always just be so focused on. I just saw them all as little individual stepping stones to get me to my ultimate goal, which was the WWE. And there's so many times that I didn't appreciate that. I remember on my 26th birthday, there's a story I love to tell. We had a big NGW TV taping at the Hull City Hall. So again, my hometown. At the time, I was the good guy champion. The camera crew got stuck in a traffic accident on the motorway, so they were going to be like, I think they were supposed to be there like 10 minutes later after the doors, after the show was supposed to start. So the promoter came running up to me. He was like, Nathan, like they're about to get here, but it's going to take them a bit of time to set up. I need you to just go to the ring and just do a Nathan Cruz promo. I was like, yeah, okay, cool. When are we going? And he was like, well, in a minute. So I'm like, right. So I quickly go grab my t-shirt, grab the belts. And as I was coming down from the change room, I could hear my music already going. So I just walked straight out, boom, sellout crowd. So it's like almost, I think it's just over 1,000 people at the whole City Hall. It's sold out. That night, I'm wrestling Doug Williams as well for the championship, which is amazing.
Wow.
So anyways, because of the advent of social media, this is like I said, 2016, I go to speak on the microphone, and literally as I bring the microphone to my mouth, I don't get a word out, and everybody in this venue started singing happy birthday to me. And I remember I just dropped the mic and I looked around, I was looking at all these people, and the first thing I said after it was like, I'll never forget that moment for the rest of my life. And I genuinely won't. And it's weird, like at the time, like I said it, and then I was focused on doing the match with Doug. And then the following week, the following day, I had a match in Morecambe. And then 3 days later, I was flying out for my first tour of the US. So I say that I was like, oh, I'll never forget that. But I was probably, by the end of that week, I had so much going on that I'm not registering how much that meant to me. And it wasn't, again, until 2020 in the lockdown, I do podcasts like this and people would ask me that question. I was like, yeah, so that was a really cool moment, that wasn't it? Not many people, in fact, I don't think anyone like could probably say that they got to experience that. Like the venue you used to go and watch wrestling in, that you used to dream of being a wrestler, you now stood in the center of it, it's sold out, and the entire venue is going to sing happy birthday to you, not because they've been asked to, but because they want to. And I was just like, it was just an incredibly beautiful, euphoric moment that just makes you just appreciate, like, man, can't we all just get on? Can't everything always be like this? Can't life just be nice? Like, let's just be good to each other, because that was a really beautiful moment that I'll never forget for my entire life. And it's just it's things like that, man. Like, they mean so much to me. Like, I just smile just thinking about it, and like, it's just cool. Let's love wrestling.
Yeah, I can see. We can see how much you love it.
Absolutely. Nathan, thank you very much for your time, for this 1 hour conversation, and for this moment. It's very important, honestly. And it's a pleasure for us. Thank you.
Just as much to me. It's like, thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. Absolutely. I appreciated the chat. It was a great chat. Absolutely.
No, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you,
and guys. Thank you, Adri, for sharing with me this moment. Very, absolutely, very special moment. A progressive conversation, okay?
Yeah.
Awesome, guys. Right. You have a good evening, guys.
Thank you very much. You too, mate.
Thank you.
See you later.
Bye-bye. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.